Hello there, Joe here from Shutter Speak Photography. Very nice to see your smiling face again here on YouTube. So, today I'd like to talk to you about the Nikon Z30. You know, I tell you what, it kind of slipped by me on the radar a little bit. I really didn't give this camera a serious look until just recently. And I have to say, it does impress. So, if you're on the fence between a Z50, a ZFC, or a Z30, I'm going to give you a kind of an overview of what the Z30 has to offer. And honestly, if you're a vlogger or you're looking to record video, I think you're going to be impressed. In fact, this video right now is recorded on the Nikon Z30. So, hey, let me show you what I got. The Nikon Z30 is a surprisingly good camera. And I think you're going to want to give this camera a serious look. If you are in the market for a camera for content creation, vlogging, or looking for a compact but very capable camera for photos at a really great price, this may be it. The Z30 is basically a Nikon Z50 that's been tweaked a bit for content creators. The Z30 adds USB power delivery and an articulating screen, but it also removes the EVF, or electronic viewfinder, making it smaller and lighter and less expensive than a Z50. The Z30 shares the same sensor that's in both the Z50 and the ZFC. It's a 20 megapixel cropped or DX sensor that's been around for quite a while. You can find a similar version of the sensor in both the D500 and the D7500, but the new mirrorless version features backside illumination, or BSI, which the previous DSLR cameras lacked. The ISO of the Z30 ranges from 100 to 51,200, with high 1 and high 2 also being available. The Z30, much like the Z50 and the ZFC, feature the Xpeed 6 processor, which is currently, at the time this video was made, is Nikon's best. The autofocus has been tweaked and improved for the Z30, and eye detection works really well, keeping subjects in focus and seldom is fooled by things like waving arms. There are a few new focus modes that didn't make it into the Z50, including large area people and animals. Shutter speed is topped out at 1/4000th, and flash sync speed is limited to a max of 1/200th. Since there's no electronic viewfinder, photos and video are composed using the rear 3-inch screen. Strangely, the Z30 does not have the extended shutter speed option of 900 seconds, but does have focus shift shooting capability, which the Z50 does not have. The Z30, of course, is marketed towards content creators, so, well, let's talk about video. The Z30 can shoot 4K video at 24, 25, or 30 frames per second. If you're shooting HD, 1920 by 1080, you can shoot from 24 frames per second to all the way up to 120 frames per second to capture slow motion video. The bitrate for video is 110 megabits per second. There are 3 additional slow motion modes that play back in slow motion. Well, they're 1080 at 120 frames per second, which plays back at 30 frames per second. 1080 at 110 frames per second, which plays back at 25 frames per second, and 1080 at 120 frames per second, which can play back at 24 frames per second. These modes do have a time limit of 3 minutes. It's also important to note that regular video recording modes do not have a recording limit you are only limited to battery life and card capacity, whichever runs out first. Video recorded in 420 8-bit, and there is no N-log form. The Z30 uses an Enon EL25 battery. There's no charger supplied, but you can charge it via USB. If you do want a charger, you can purchase a Nikon MH32 charger sold separately. The camera is Z-mount, so you can use any Z lens or any older F lens using the F to Z adapter. Keep in mind, of course, if you're using a full frame lens, you'll need to apply a crop factor of 1.5. So for example, The lens on my Z30 right now is a Viltrox 35mm full frame lens. Since the Z30 is not full frame, you must apply a crop factor of 1.5, which makes the actual focal length of this lens about 52mm when on a Z30, a Z50, or a ZFC camera. Also important to note, battery life when running video should be about 75 minutes. So that might kind of be a hard limit for you for recording. If you run out of battery life, obviously you can't keep recording. And it's rated for about 330 still photographs. So let's take a look at some of the components and the nomenclature, if you will, of this camera. Okay, so taking a look at the Z30, one of the things that I really like about it is, first off, it feels good in your hand. It's got this big bump out up front that just fits your hand really nicely. It's got a very familiar layout. It looks like the rest of your Nikon Z cameras for the most part, except maybe the Z9. Okay, but you're gonna have your I button and all the buttons are in the familiar places that you're used to. Same thing up top. Up top here we do have our mode dial. We have a front and rear command dial, so we have a command and sub-command dial up here at our fingertips, which is kind of typical. We do have two programmable buttons up front, so we have an F1 and F2 function button up front. Up top here you're going to find two stereo microphones and your hot shoe as well. And on the side here we have a mic input, we have a mini HDMI, and we have a USB for USB power delivery. Now this can output 4K to an Atmos or any other video recorder when you're recording at 4K. It's one of the weird things, like for example a Z7 couldn't do. For whatever reason you could record at 4K, but you couldn't also output it at the same time to an Atmos. So that is something that the Z30 can do. Of course there is no EVF. You do have this nice fully articulating screen that can rotate to the front, and then from here you can rotate it, so if you're holding it up you can kind of rotate it. So you do have to flip it out though to rotate it on this axis. Okay, so you can't do it from the back here. And of course it can flip all the way around and in like that. So overall, nice build quality, magnesium alloy body, but it's not weather sealed, okay? Although it does have some sealing, but it's just these seals, these kind of, I guess, rubber caps. There's no hot shoe cap here, but that's something you can buy for a couple of pennies or 3D print one or whatever. But it is relying mostly on its, tight fitting seals and things like that and gaskets to protect the camera. But again, not weather sealed, so don't take this out in the pouring rain. But that's just good advice in general. All right, so overall I like it, but hey, how does it do taking pictures and shooting video? I mean, that's really the important part, right? I think you're going to be happily surprised. Let's take a look. So as I mentioned, eye tracking is definitely improved on Nikon Z30 over the Z50, and you can see it does a really solid job of tracking my eye movement. Even when I go out of frame and come back into frame, it does a good job. So very impressed with the subject and eye tracking of this camera. It doesn't get confused, it doesn't get lost. It really is quite solid, so I think you'll be very happy with it. Okay, so here's an example of some 4K video shot in the Nikon standard profile. I just wanted to get you a little example of what the colors look like. No color grading has been applied here. And sorry for the shaky video. Yes, I was walking, but just wanted you to get to see this because it's pretty cool. Okay, so we know the Z30 is a capable video camera for a vlogger or just someone who wants to take some family movies or YouTubers or somebody like me, right? But what if you wanted to take some stills with it? How do the files hold up? Now, as I mentioned, it's a sensor that has been around since the days of the D500. You'll also find it in the D7500, but it's an improved upon version. So this newer version that's in your Z50, ZFC, and your Z30 has backside illumination or BSI, and of course coupled with the Xpeed 6 processor, you're getting a lot of, well, surprisingly good detail out of that sensor. So let's take a look. So what I did was I went out and shot a bunch of photos. I'm going to show you the raw file first, and then I'll show you what's capable with maybe 5 minutes of editing on each one of these photos. So you can get a feel of how much you can pull out of this sensor in terms of dynamic range. All right, so here's our first sample image. This is the raw, unprocessed, straight out of camera. And let's see what we can do with a couple of minutes of editing. And so there you go. And you see we got all the detail on those flowers back. The colors are that nice Nikon vibrant colors that everyone loves. Rich, detailed color. So yeah, nice job. And here we go. And we definitely have a loss of details in here a little bit. Obviously, this is a scene with a lot of dynamic range and maybe a pretty good candidate for HDR, but that's not really what we want to do here. We want to see what's capable with the sensor, right? So let's take a look. And there we go. We recovered all that detail up in here in the glass. Nice, bright, vibrant, fun little image. And the next one, not really even sure exactly what this thing was, other than the fact that it's actually pretty darn cool. So let's take a look and see what we can do with that. And yeah, with a little bit of editing, not much really needed to be done with that, but just pop the colors a little bit. And, we do have some really nice detail in here. So the sensor does a pretty good job. And how about a wide landscape? What can we do with this? Well, there you go. So again, sensor does a good job, and nice sharp details in the windows, from a considerable distance here. So yeah, pretty good. I'm happy with that. Oops. Well, let's take a look at this sunflower here, and I see we got a lot of loss of detail in the center of the sunflower, right? Obviously, a lot of dynamic range here between the center of that sunflower and that bright sky and the water behind us. And let's take a look and see. And there you go. Yeah, so didn't quite pull back all of the detail, but we pulled back quite a lot, right? So not bad. And we even got the bee on there. So yeah, no, I'd be pretty happy with this picture. Just walking around with this camera, it is nice and small and light. Now, I will say it was a very bright, sunny, shiny day, and this is because there's no electronic viewfinder like taking a picture on your cell phone. And when it is very bright out, it is a little bit hard to see on the back of the screen. So you're going to want to turn the brightness all the way up. In fact, that was a setting that I put in my menu. So I have a quick access to the screen brightness, so I could bump it all the way up as high as it would go while I was outdoors. So little tip for you there if you want to walk around with this. It's such a small, light, compact camera. It might be something that from time to time you want to just throw in your pocket. Okay, so I hope you found this video helpful. Please do me a favor, leave me in the comments. Let me know if you are a Z30 owner. Let me know what you think about this camera. If you're thinking about getting one, let me know. And if you're on the fence between a ZFC, a Z50, or a Z30, give me a shout out and let me know your thoughts. And I'd love to know what the deciding factor was and why you decided to choose one over any of the other ones. Hey, and of course, if anything in this video has helped you out or helped you make a purchase decision, easiest way to thank me is just hitting like, subscribe, and ring the bell. That's the best way to say thank you, so I do truly appreciate that. And, like I said, hit me up in the comments. I do try to answer as many as I can, and I always appreciate hearing from you guys. So, hey, until next time, thanks for watching YouTube. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.